The next CRE England success tip I want to talk about is the driver manager. The driver manager can make or break your career at CRE England, so it's very important that you handle that relationship properly. The first step is to realize that the driver manager is overworked, they're underpaid, and they have well over 100 trucks that they're responsible for, and they don't know who you are. You're just a number. So that's where you're starting from. What you need to do is you need to establish a relationship and get a reputation with your DM so that they know who you are and that they give you the best loads first and take care of you and watch you and make sure you're successful. Now there's only one way to do that, and that is in order for you to be successful as a driver, you have to make your DM successful. Now the way DMs are measured, the way CRE England looks at them is they look at two things. They look at the number of miles that their trucks drive, and they look at how much they're on time. So the only thing that really matters to your DM is can you do the miles and can you deliver the load on time. Now because the DMs have so many drivers, there's a third issue which comes into play, which is how much of a pain in the neck you are and how much of their time you waste because they have over 100 trucks. So what you need to be able to do, you need to be able to run the miles, you need to be on time, and you need to do it in such a way as that you don't waste or use up any of the DM's time that it could be spending on other trucks. And you have to get a reputation of doing that. So if you're brand new with a DM or have a new DM or just started working in the independent contractor program, the first thing you have to do is do something to put your hand up and let your DM know that you're the kind of guy that they want to work with. Now, the way you start doing that is you contact your DM by Qualcomm because they never have time to talk to you on the phone, and you tell the DM a couple of things. You introduce yourself, etc. Hey, I'm truck so-and-so, and what you do is you tell the DM right off the bat that there's going to be some garbage loads that nobody wants or problem customers or there's going to be issues, and you want to let the DM know that if he's got a problem and he's got a garbage load, give it to you first. Let him know that you're a team player. Let him know that if he's got a problem, that you're willing to take that problem for him and solve it. And what that does is that makes him understand who you are, and that also makes him owe you something. So in other words, if you run a garbage load for a few miles or take a swap you really didn't want to swap to help the DM out, what he'll do is he owes you something now, so he'll help you out later. Now what I did when I started with my new DM is I sent him a Qualcomm message and I said, hey, this is who I am, I work hard, I'll be on time, I'll run the miles, I won't bug you with unimportant issues, and I'll be a good driver for you. That's number one. Number two is I told him that all of my Qualcomm communication would be positive. In other words, I would never put anything negative on the Qualcomm, like somebody corporate did a bad job or the DM did a bad job or I was unhappy. What you want to do is you want to keep all messages on the Qualcomm to your DM positive, and if you have a problem, you discuss that with the DM on the phone so there's no written record. Now these Qualcomm messages you send are permanent and they last forever, and the messages when you talk to them on the telephone, it doesn't. So you keep all positive stuff on the Qualcomm, you keep all negative stuff on the phone. The second thing you have to do for your DM, besides help him meet his goals in terms of on time and running the miles, you have to help him get him promoted in his job. And the way you do that is you regularly send him very favorable Qualcomm messages talking about your relationship with him on the truck. For example, if you're running solo and you have a good week, you get well over 3,000 miles and things are going well, what you do is you take 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes, you sit down on the Qualcomm and you send your DM a thank you message on the Qualcomm saying, hey man, you did a great job with the truck this week, ran over 3,000 miles, made some money, thanks to you and the load planners for doing a great job. You send them that message. Now if you're at the point where the DM's not giving you the good loads all the time, you're not getting them as much as you should, then every time you get a good one, you say, hey man, I just got like a 3,000 mile run, thanks very much, I appreciate it. So you keep giving them positive feedback on the Qualcomm written that they can use to get promoted. You get a reputation of running the miles and not being late, and you're never a problem using up their time for things they really should be. I've heard of drivers calling the DM because they can't get load locks or they got lights on the dash or different things. DM doesn't care about that. If you have issues you need to cover about how to run the truck, you need to go back to your relationships with the experienced drivers. Do not bother your DM. Your DM simply wants to be having you run the miles, be on time without a lot of issues. Now, the other thing, when I started out with my first DM, her name was Sydney, and I worked with her for a period of time. And after about 2 or 3 weeks, I sent her a Qualcomm message. I said, "Sydney, how am I doing?" She sent me a message back saying, "Hey, you're one of my top drivers, thank you." And I was thinking, how on earth could I possibly be one of Sydney's top drivers? I'd only been there for 2 weeks. And I called her and talked to her about it, and this is what she told me. When I started with Sydney originally, she asked me to send her a report every morning before 7, giving her my ETA and PTA and let her know what's going on with the trip. She asked me for that. Apparently, out of the 100 drivers she had, she could count on 2 hands the number of drivers that were consistent in giving her the information she needed in regard to ETA and PTA for the run. So, even if you just do the most basic thing that the DM asks you to do, you're going to be way ahead of everybody else because everybody else isn't doing the most basic thing. So, do what your DM tells you. Give them your ETAs, your PTAs, the regular information they need to keep the truck moving. Be positive, only go negative on the telephone, and make sure you have a reputation of running the miles, of not being late, and of not being a lot of trouble. Now I can tell you that I'm working very hard on these issues, and after 3 years, if I'm sitting at a yard somewhere and everybody's waiting for a load assignment, my Qualcomm goes off first, because the DM and the load planners, they know me, they know I'll run the miles, I won't be late, and I'll do it hassle-free. And that's what they want, as well as the positive feedback about what a great job they're doing. It's all psychology, it's all relationships, and you got to have a good relationship with your DM and your load planners to be successful in this business.